Hi, great to see I can't see you, but it's great if you're joining this live technique class. We're going to be looking today at ways to make your left hand more efficient. We can look at that from various angles. There's various sort of types of efficiency that we're aiming for when when using the left hand in guitar playing. So the first thing I'm going to look at are some wonderful exercises. And on my YouTube channel, you'll find a video dedicated to this already, but I think it's worth going over again, especially if you haven't come across it before. And that's adduction exercises. There's a wonderful set of articles by Pat O'Brien, who was a guitarist and lutenist, a very respected teacher as well in New York. And he in the Lute Society of America, they actually made these articles. They put them into the public domain, so you can get it on their website. And I haven't linked to it below just yet, but afterwards, when the class is just up on YouTube, I will put a link to that. It's well worth reading that, reading through those articles in full. But I'm going to introduce you to his idea just now, and that's that in the left hand we tend to overuse the muscles that open the hand, and that of course creates problems such as tendinitis. We can address that by strengthening the muscles that close the hand, adduction muscles. Yeah. So that's a really interesting thing to think about. And his point is that if you're not using those muscles, if you're only using the muscles that open the hand, you tend to spread a lot here, but with very little result here. So if you look at this, I'm trying to spread my hand, but my fingertips are all pointing inwards. I'm not getting much span by doing that. So we can, by working on the muscles that pull the fingers together, we can start to get fingertips that are aligned better, pointing in less. And that means that potentially we'll be able to get more stretch this way, but with less strain on the back of the hand. So we're going to take the first of Pat O'Brien's exercises. This is what he would get students to do when they went to him for the first time, often with problems in their left hand, and that's to put fingers 2 and 4. I've got them on frets 8 and 9 on string 6 at the moment. If you want to try that. So you'll see that 2 and 4 are on adjacent frets, not the usual spacing of a fret apart. It's as if we're using 2 consecutive fingers, but in actual fact we're using 2 and 4. And it's just that by decreasing the required span, we can work on this exercise a little. Well, it's a bit easier to start with. What you're looking to do is, whilst keeping the fingertips in the same place, pull the fingers together like this. So these knuckles here are going to be pulled together, but the fingertips stay in the same place. And you can hold it for a few seconds and then release again. Hold it for a few seconds and then release. Hold it for a few seconds and then release. Try that just now. It's quite difficult to do for a first time. You'll find perhaps that your fingertips are trying to move closer together like this, but do try not to do that. You can practice this anywhere, incidentally. You can practice it on any surface. great thing to do whilst having your morning coffee, perhaps, if you want to continue practice, or you're not able, or sitting on the bus or whatever. And you can practice it anywhere. But we start with fingers 2 and 4. And once you've got the hang of it, try doing it on the 6th string, release, move to the 5th string, and repeat the exercise again. And then to the 4th string, repeat the exercise again. The 3rd string, the 2nd string, the 1st string. So I'm not sure how individuals are finding that. Some people take to it very easily. Other people don't. That's always the case. But it's well worth persevering with, even if you find it difficult at the moment. After doing that, move down a fret. Now on fret 7 and 8, and repeat the exercise. And you see it gets a little bit more difficult because the frets get further apart. That's me on string 5 and on string 4. And the wider the frets, the more difficult this is. Now I'm on string 1. Finish that. Now I'm going to go back to string 6, but move down a fret again. I'm on fret 6 and 7. Squeeze, release. Try not to press hard. Try not to press down on the string hard whilst doing this, because that's the wrong muscles, as it were. And of course, that's a bad habit to get into. We're going to be addressing that also in this class, how hard you need to press. Most guitarists press too hard, in fact. Then on string 1 and release. Now on fret 5, going to keep doing that. And if you reach a point at which you sort of can't do the exercise anymore, that's no problem. You can stop there. But eventually, as you are able to control those muscles and build strength in those muscles, you'll be able to get further down the fingerboard where the frets are wider. That's me on fret 4 now. So if you've got your guitar, please do try this along with me just now. Now, Pat O'Brien said that you can't really overuse those muscles. I'm not sure if that's strictly true, but whereas it's very easy to overuse the muscles that open the fingers, and so many musicians have got into deep trouble, irreparable damage, perhaps in some cases, by trying to stretch their fingers, and so this, although it seems counterintuitive to work on the muscles that pull the fingers together, it's much healthier for the hand. And once those muscles are built up, you'll find that your span, you can stretch more with less strain on the back of the hand. There are other benefits to this too, which I'll show you in a moment when we go on to working through some scales. So that's great. Give your hand a rest at the moment. I'm going to go on to the next part of this exercise, which is to repeat it with fingers 1 and 3. So I'm going to put fingers 1 and 3 on frets 8 and 9 respectively again, and do the same thing. We change. Now you don't have to do it along with me if you're at home struggling to simply move the fingers in the correct way. Don't feel you need to keep up with me. I'm going through it to show you what you ideally ought to be doing in your own practice. If you are able to do it, great. Do it along with me. If you have a teacher, I really recommend to everybody really to have a one-to-one teacher. These classes are certainly not in conflict with that. They're complementary to it. it is good to take this to your one-to-one teacher and get them to make sure you're doing it correctly. I'm now on fret 6 and 7. Now, this is very much an introduction. Once you get used to doing it with non-adjacent fingers, you can move on to well, firstly, you can add a fret. So use 2 and 4 in the usual spacing with a fret apart, so say frets 8 and 10, and see if you can still do it. You possibly won't be able to. I wasn't when I first discovered these exercises. I certainly couldn't do that for a start. In fact, this concept was introduced to me by one wonderful guitarist while I was over in Korea, of all places. He introduced this concept to me over a kind of hot pot over dinner before we got our flights back. I'll maybe link in the later to that guitarist's stuff. He's a really, really very fine player, but I couldn't do it. I was very embarrassed. I couldn't do it at all. But I've certainly found it's been beneficial. So these are exercises I came to, very late. These weren't part of my kind of technical formation when I was a teenager, getting up early in the morning, practicing lots of Carl Ivaro and the like. This came much later, but very useful. So if you're not able to, as I say, do 2 and 4 in this way, say frets 8 and 10, if you're not able to do that, that's fine. What I suggest doing is going for 1.5 for a start. It doesn't matter where the finger is. For these exercises, I mean, as I say, you can do it here. It doesn't really matter where it's placed in relation to the fret, because you're trying to work on it's a muscular thing that you're trying to work on. But certainly, if you're able to do that spacing, then you eventually want to be moving on to that, and same with 1 and 3, and then of course 2 consecutive fingers, 3 and 4, for instance, like that. I'm not going to go through that just now. I'm assuming that this is quite new to a lot of people, and if it is new to you, you certainly shouldn't be going near those at the moment. Stick to the base 2 and 4, 1 and 3 on consecutive frets, and that that should be really helpful. Now, one thing it really helps with, as well as stretching and avoiding following in the footsteps of Schumann, the great composer and great pianist, who got into trouble with well, the basic thing is that you can't make your hand bigger. Hand is as the size of your hand, length of your fingers, all that stuff. That's that's just what you've got. And there are guitarists and pianists and violinists, all sorts of musicians with all sorts of hands. I mean, you can Google the span of various pianists, and some like Rachmaninoff had a colossal span, and others, I think perhaps Scriabin, I could be wrong about that, had very could only maybe reach an octave on the piano. It's no problem. You get around these things. It's using what you've got effectively, and the subject of this class efficiently. But you can really improve on the positioning of the 4th finger by practicing adduction exercises. And you'll find, if you get the positioning of the 4th finger right, you'll need to use much less effort to press the string. So if I put my 4th finger on C, that's the 1st string, 8th fret. And I'm going to put my 3rd finger on the fret just behind it, on the 7th fret. Now, if your 4th finger is sitting like this, right to the side, in order to press, you're going to have to press harder than you need to, because you're not pressing with the center of the fingertip. It's like trying to press a button with the sort of side of your finger. In fact, those of us with nails actually often know how inconvenient they are because of that. You've got to sort of put a lot more effort into it. And the other thing is that you're going to be overusing the back of the hand again. You're going to be putting slight strain on that. And of course, these problems are cumulative. They don't just happen overnight. It's just one day you'll get up and find you've got pain in your hand. And that's something we all want to avoid. Not the end of the world if it does happen. Don't feel you need to give up. Pat O'Brien, whom I mentioned, who really possibly invented these exercises, he helped people through that. There are people who can help you, so absolutely don't despair. But ideally, we want to avoid these things in the first place. But trying to get the finger on its tip, more directional, like this, you'll find that you don't need to press nearly as hard. And we're going to look now at some scales as a way of addressing that. I just want to have a look at the comment that's come in, which for some reason I can't read. That's right. To draw the outside finger inwards. Great way to speak about it. But the other finger can. Sorry, I've put you on full view. I didn't mean to do that. I'm still getting used to this stuff. Yeah, but the other finger should move towards it as well. The inside finger should move out a bit. But certainly, yeah, the most important thing is the outside finger moving inward. Great question. I'm glad you asked that, and it clarifies things a little bit. So let's have a look at the following scale at the top. You might need to get closer to your screen to see it. It's a C major. It's what I believe it's the Segovia. It's the first scale up here, and I believe it's the kind of Segovia fingering. I put these together for the BMUS students at the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland, where I taught until a year or so ago. And in fact, I used to do a technique class, a weekly technique class with them, and they had to prepare these scales for their exams. So let's have a look at that scale. You may know it already. I'm going to reduce the size a little bit so you can see what I'm going to show you. So we go through that scale like this. We can really watch especially the pinky, the position of the pinky. We're going to take the first octave of that scale and really watch the position of the pinky. And rather than moving up to C like this, which we would do if we were playing both octaves, we're just going to play C with the pinky. So we get a 1 octave scale. And you're trying to avoid this. And instead get a good, a direct hit, if you like. I'm going to stay on this scale for a while, so if you're trying it out, you have a chance to get your bearings. And indeed, look at the position of the other fingers as well. The second finger, for example, try and avoid it being over to the side, like this. Try and have it straight on. First finger as well. So we've got this going on. So we'll do this as 1 octave one more time, and then we'll move up another octave. We'll do do the full Segovia fingering, as it were. And all the time watching the position of your fingers, especially for, and I mentioned 2 as well. In this particular fingering, 2 is really important as well. It's used a lot. So we're already, I mean, by using a scale, we're taking the principle, the muscular development, and applying it to notes, applying it to music. A scale is music. Do it once more, and then we'll move on from this topic. Good. Have a break. That's like give your hand a rest, and we're going to go on to something else now. Still, the topic is still efficiency. We're going to look at how hard you need to press, how hard you should press. Most guitarists, I think, press too hard, and they use up a lot of their energy pressing harder than they need to. So a few things to bear in mind. We're going to stick with the scale for this. I'm going to take it off just now, but I can put it on again. So a few things to bear in mind. That this is a very basic thing that you hopefully covered in your early guitar lessons, if you had lessons, or as a beginner. But it's definitely worth repeating. And if you didn't know before, then well, you'll know now. And that's to position the fingers near the fret. Okay, this is to many people watching this. This might seem a little bit basic. Maybe feel that they don't need to be reminded of this. But the fret is always the one sort of after where the finger is, not before. I mean, that seems a ridiculous thing to say, but I've certainly found with guitarists in the first few weeks of study that they can get muddled up with that, understandably, at that stage. But when we're playing on the first fret, our finger ought to be here. So it's not on the metal, it's just behind it. And the reason for that is that the string doesn't buzz as easily, which also means that you don't need to press as hard. Let's try as an experiment the C major scale again. So we take the first note, C, and let's move the finger back towards the previous fret. It's buzzing. Now I can get rid of that buzz by pressing hard. There we go. No buzz. My finger is still as badly positioned as it was. It's near the previous fret. You can see that. And I managed to get no buzz by pressing hard. But you don't want to be doing that. That's a waste of energy. So accuracy on this point is crucial. And if you find that you do tend to buzz a little bit when you're playing, or you do find that you press too hard, do try and address it. Firstly, by fixing the position of the fingers in relation to the frets. Crucial, very, very important. So practicing passages from pieces, practicing scales, exercises, whatever it is you're practicing, get the finger positioned near the fret. Not on the fret, of course, but just before the fret. And you really will find that you don't need to press nearly as hard. And what I'd like to do now is go to the upper octave of that scale. So we're going to go to the C on string 3, fret 5 with our first finger. And again, we're looking for good positioning of the fingers in relation to the frets. Sorry to repeat it, but I do find that it's useful. Students do find it useful to have those things repeated. And I'm going to press with the first finger so that I'm touching the string, but I can't get any sound. That's it, a thud. So that is too light. We need more pressure than that. Let's press harder. Okay, I've got a sound. Right, but that's a nice, I'm getting the sound, I'm pressing hard enough, but I don't know if I'm pressing too hard. So now we're going to release the pressure a little bit, ever so slightly. See if we can still get a sound. See where the rattle creeps in. Still good positioning next to the fret, because if you're before the fret, it'll buzz much more easily. Now here I go. I've still got a note now, but there's a rattle. I want you to try and find that place. I want you to try and find that amount of pressure. First finger on the 3rd string, 5th fret. Very light so that we hear the note, but it rattles, it buzzes, so you're not quite pressing hard enough. You wonder why I'm getting you to do this. But you'll see in a moment. I want you to think of, for those of you who drive cars, I want you to think of this as the biting point. When you're learning clutch control, you need to learn that the biting point, the fundamental thing to driving. If you can't get that, you can't really drive a car. If you don't drive, then that analogy will be lost on you. But try and find that point anyway. But I do find as a driver myself, I do find that that's a good and helpful analogy. Okay, now if you found that place where you get the note but with a rattle, now ever so slightly start to press harder, a minuscule amount, and you should find that rattle disappears very quickly, almost immediately. As soon as you increase the pressure, that rattle disappears. And that's how hard you need to press. You don't need to press any harder than that. Now, I want you to be quite honest with yourself and ask yourself, is that how hard I normally press? It might be. Maybe you're really good on this point. But for most people, that's going to be considerably lighter than they would normally press. So think of all the energy all those hours of frustration trying to get the passage right. In actual fact, half your energy's going on pressing too hard. It's a good thing to think about. So here we go. We found how hard we need to press. But let's find that the so-called bite again, the biting point. Clutch control, guitar clutch control. There we are. is rattling. It's great. Now let's go through the scale. That octave of the scale. The third finger's next. Same string, 7th fret. Yeah, rattling. I want to play it rattling. I want to keep it rattling. Because if you can do that consistently, play with only enough pressure to get a note, but with a rattle. It's almost nothing to lose the note, and it's almost nothing to gain the note entirely. It's right in the middle. It takes a lot of control. Once you're able to control the fingers to be able to make the note, but with a slight rattle, assuming the positioning of the fingers is correct, both in terms of what I mentioned before, the directness of the fingertip, and where the fingertip is positioned in relation to the fret, then you have the control to press as hard or as light as you need. You will have that control. Obviously, we don't want it to rattle when we're playing pieces, but in order to develop that control, this is a great way to do it. We're going to go on to the next note now, which is E on the 2nd string, 5th fret, with the first finger. You see I pressed too hard there. Get it to rattle. Now F, same string, next fret, 2nd finger. Now G, same string, finger 4, fret 8. Now onto the first string to play A on the 5th fret. Still got a rattle. Now B, same string, first string, 7th fret, 3rd finger. And now C with the pinky. You can work on the adduction while you're doing it as well. Good. If you haven't done this before, you'll probably find this is requiring quite a lot of your mental effort. It is mental effort for this. So do take a little break, and so you can come back at it refreshed. We're going to do a little bit more on this because I think it's really important, crucial, and it can really enhance your guitar playing if you address this. What we're going to do now is slowly play through the scale, just that octave, the top octave of the scale, in 5th position. 1, 3 on string 3, string 2, 1, 2, 4, string 1, 1, 3, 4, and then back again. We're going to play through the scale slowly, but trying to make every note rattle. Trying to have that sort of clutch control on each note. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's repeat it. If you find you've got the hang of that, let's do it double tempo. Good. Now we're going to press ever so slightly harder, do the scale again, and try and get rid of the rattle. In fact, even better, we're going to play each note twice, the first with a rattle, the second without. 1, 2, 3, 4. Rattle, rattle, no 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 rattle. Great. Now let's try playing the scale through with no rattle, but very lightly. 2, 3, 4. We'll do it again after this. Stop there. Now, of course, you can apply that to the whole scale. All octaves, you can go through lots of scales. I mean, if you come onto this video again, you'll be able to read the scales. You can pause it when it was the scales were blown up a bit more, and play through them. It's actually, most of them are just actually in that sheet the same. A lot of them are the same fingering, but moved into different positions for different keys. There are a few others on that sheet as well. So that's Fescher. So we've covered positioning of the finger, adduction, trying to get the fingers more on the tips. If you've just joined the class, welcome to you. And later you could go back and watch that. As a kind of offshoot of adduction, it was making sure that we're touching the string with a direct hit with the fingertip, and then looking at Fescher, how much Fescher we're using, trying to keep it as light as possible. So the final thing I'm going to look at is the efficiency of the hand in relation to the arm, and to try and cut out unnecessary arm movement, in a way to try and bring the movements down to the smallest muscles, if you like. That's not, don't want that, the way I express that, don't want to take that to too much of an extreme. So there's always a qualification in everything with guitar playing. We're not dealing with that absolutes here. But I'm going to show you what I mean with the same scale. I'm going to take the scale off the screen for now and just go through the scale. And I'm going to show you an inefficient way of playing the scale, and then an efficient one. So here's the inefficient way. So the arm's having to move like this all the time to make the notes. Now let me do it efficiently. Okay, what's going on there? Well, you can see what's going on. There's less arm movement, but there's more to it than that. When you play, you can try it yourself, by the way. I can put the scale back up, or you can try playing anything you like. When you play it efficiently, much more is demanded of the hand itself. You'll find that the muscles of the hand are being worked harder when the arm isn't doing the work for you. And now, to illustrate that, take the scale off the screen again. To illustrate that, I'm going to go to an exercise that you find, it was most famously in Pumping Nylon, Scott Tennant's famous book, Pumping Nylon. But a lot of other guitarists I've seen show this exercise to people, and it's called left-hand walking. And the exercise is, well, we'll do it in fifth position. You take your first finger on string 6, we play it, and then we move to the next string. I may have done this exercise in an earlier class, but we're going to look at it from a slightly different different point here. Let's do that again. First finger on the fifth position on the 6th string, and it just jumps from string to string. And I think in a previous class I was looking at trying to make sure you're using the fingertip in a very consistent way. But here we're looking at efficiency. We're looking at reducing the movement of your arm and reducing the movement of the bigger muscles. Now that you've got the hang of that, let's jump. We're going to skip the other fingers for now. You can practice the other fingers at home, obviously. We might have time to do it now. But I'm going to jump to the pinky and try it with the pinky. Pinky's on fret 8 now. Now, I dare say what a lot of you found was that your pinky did this. So the arm moved like this, the hand moved like this in order to get the pinky on to the top string. That's great if you're just doing the walking exercise. Well, it's not great because the walking exercise is supposed to help you develop what you need to develop in order to play pieces. But in the context of a piece, say we've got something like that. We're not able to go. We lose the first finger. We lose those notes. Maybe those notes are meant to be held on. That's just an example which I've created out of thin air. It could be any example like that. If you have to move the whole arm to get the pinky into position, well, you're going to displace the other fingers. That's going to affect everything. I mean, the same thing applies to the other fingers, but it's often most obvious with the pinky, which is why I've jumped to the pinky. The pinky needs to stay in position. Well, let's look at the difference between the efficient way of doing that exercise with the pinky and the inefficient way. Let's look at what the pinky does. Pinky, when we do it efficiently, has to move. I'm going to try and go to the side if you don't get too much glare from the lights. I may be exaggerating the point a little bit here. In a piece, you wouldn't quite have the pinky curve like that. That's not very healthy. But for this exercise, it's worth doing, just to develop the pinky. The pinky's having to work quite hard. It's having to go from quite an extended position to a very contracted one, like this. And if you just do that pinky from string 6 to string 1, you'll get the idea. Now, if I do it inefficiently, the pinky isn't working at all. The pinky is keeping the same position of, well, quite natural position, slightly extended, not much, certainly not contracted very much. And the arm's doing the work for it. So you see, that hopefully illustrates what I was trying to get at when I said that when you use the hand more efficiently, in this sense of less overall movement, you actually work the hand more. That sort of goes against what I just said with regard to pressing. You're trying to press less hard in order to conserve energy. But it's slightly different because here we're using the right muscles. We're using the muscles that need to be used in order to play the guitar. And indeed, we need to develop the strength of our hands. We need to make them stronger. So, in order to be able to increase stamina, to be able to play for longer, and all this stuff. So, trying to conserve energy is not about not building strength and muscle. I mean, any sportsman will. Well, you can use any physical activity really to illustrate the point, but certainly sports. You want to be using the right muscles for the right job. So let's go back to doing this. We do a kind of not quite the full walking exercise, but just doing this. You can do it slower if you like, and try not to move the hand at all and to have the pinky contract very much. See how that feels. Might feel a bit strange, but that's what I'd like people watching to develop, or to make sure that they have developed, is that ability. Now, in the context of a piece, there's going to be a little bit of movement. We can't have the pinky really doing that. So as I said before, we're not dealing in absolute rules. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to apply these things in some absolute way. That's why a one-to-one teacher, really important. You can check these things with your teacher. And that's really, really important. I'd like to illustrate this with a couple of pieces. So firstly, we're going to look at a little passage from Bach's Suite in E minor, the Allemande. Look at that first bar. That scale. So if we want to hold that chord for any length of time, I think there is a rest there, although this is quite an approximation of the piece with regard to rhythmic values, just really for this class. But you do want to allow that chord to resonate a little bit. You don't want to go, but maybe take it off in the last semiquaver, just to allow a little bit of resonance. Well, you notice that the pinky has to be able to fit there. We can't be moving the hand to keep for the comfort of the pinky. I'll try that. Everything gets lost and muted. We need to fit it in there. Let's derive a technical exercise from that right now. So just now you were doing the walking exercise like this, or like this. Now what we're going to do is put the third finger on the 6th string. We do this on the 7th fret. And then the pinky's going to go. So there's stretch involved, but it's the same principle of the walking exercise. It's with a fixed finger now. Something to practice to help you with. Let's go back to the piece. Let's look at the scale after that. So this is a great passage to try and keep the hands, like I did with the scale, try and keep the hand, avoid movement like this, avoid. This is an example of how, and this might not be a piece you're working on just now, but working on repertoire, you're working on technique as well when you do it right. You can even address what we addressed with the adduction exercises of trying to make sure that you've got a direct hit, not the finger on its side. Let's go on. if we're not able to contract the pinky like that, as we did with the walking, if we have to do that, look at what happens. Everything else is muted. That finger is dragged down, dragged flat into this flat position by the pinky, just because it can't contract at all. It can't move whilst the hand stays still. And so on. You can go back later, pause the video at the music if you want to try that passage. But you see, so we've already got this stuff. We've got practical examples of where it's necessary to have these things developed. Now here's if you want to develop this with a piece that's easier than that piece of Bach, we can have a look at this piece now. The second study. So this is a great study. This is Sohr's set of studies, etudes, or set of lessons, Opus 35. And you can get this very music that I've got here from IMSLP. It's in the public domain. It's an old edition. But that piece is a great one to look at for this this issue. And I'm going to take the music off because you can maybe later on find that music and just show you how to go about it. So, not each movement you can make efficient. Not try and get everything working from the fingers. Look at Manuel Barrueco to see this in action in its most perfect in a way. Can all be played like that. Now you'll find that it's uncomfortable when you do that. If you haven't done it before, you'll want to go. You want to do all that. You want to find ways to make it feel easier for the fingers, because you're not developing very much if you do that. Make sure it's efficient. Make sure that it's all just finger movements. And that study will be of tremendous help to you. Again, it's how we practice. It's not kind of just getting the music out and doing it, but it's doing it with real intentionality that makes all the difference. So that's the end of the class for today. Thanks very much for joining me. If you are interested in some of the stuff I've got lined up, then do keep an eye on the page. You can subscribe to my list at my web. My website's currently being sort of redeveloped, but you can email me if you want to join that. Email me the email address below. If you would like to check out my Patreon page, we're going to have some really exciting stuff happening. I'm starting a program with David from DK Classical Guitars, where we're going to be interviewing luthiers to try and get their insights into guitar making and we're sort of trying to discover what makes a good guitar and what's that extra bit of magic. Um, and the first of those programs will be going on YouTube a week on Monday. So that will be Monday, the 19th of February at 8 o'clock. That's going to go on YouTube. However, it's going to be recorded a few days before, and people who are part of my little Patreon community will be able to participate in that with some questions. So we'll do the interview, and at the end, people who've joined us for the live filming of it will be able to ask some questions. So do keep an eye on that. I'm not. We do know who it's going to be. I'm not going to quite say it yet. Keep it as a surprise. But that will be. It'll be filmed a few days before. If you want to join my Patreon, the updates will be there, and and it will go on YouTube, full public, free public view on Monday the 19th of February. And then a little bit after that, I'm going to be talking to a fantastic guitarist, Samrat Majumdar, who is Scottish, but he has connections to India, and he's exploring the role of the guitar in India. He's sort of trying to find how, a sort of a meeting of musical styles, musical backgrounds, by exploring the guitar in India. India has such a rich musical tradition, of course. So that's going to be good. That will be again announced on my Patreon page, and if you don't want to join that, do subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's completely free, and click the notification button to keep up. And if you do want to support me and support this work in any other way, then you can do so at Buy Me a Coffee, where you can also get hold of sheet music and things whilst the website is undergoing a much needed makeover. But for the time being, thanks very much for joining this class. I do hope it's been helpful and of use, and hope you'll join me for the next one in 2 weeks' time. All the best.